have before you are confidential. They're considered as worksheets. We've duly advertised this meeting, and we are videotaping it for our residents. If anybody in the public has a question, Kim, you can ask it at the very end, and it's only specific to budget issues only. And if everybody would please mute your cell phone, I'd appreciate it. And the chief is here this evening. Do you have a copy of your budget with you, Chief?
I do.
Do you want to start off and explain your wish list first?
I can do that. Bear with me for just a second. So on to the wish list that I submitted. We want to replace a couple of computer monitors with bigger screen monitors, which are much easier when you sit in front of them doing reports. It's not a huge expense, approximately $250 each. We don't need to increase any line item in the budget to do it, as long as we have some money for capital in there. The second item on my wish list was Power DMS. It's a software for managing policies, training, and interdepartmental communication. It is rather pricey. It's going to come in somewhere between $3,500 and $3,800. But I am in the process currently of going through our entire policy manual, rewriting, I won't say rewriting, reformatting and updating, removing policies that are out of date, updating those that need to be updated. And this is a way to manage those so that when we make a change, we can get it out to everybody. Everybody has access to the system, and we can record their signature that they have indeed gotten the policy, read the policy. We can create in the system a 5 or 10 question quiz to get them, to make sure that we've gotten the salient points of the policy across. Okay, it's not a gradable quiz, but it's a way for us to say, yes, you got it. You understand what the important points of this policy are. So that's what we'd like to do with that. The next item I asked for was a cell phone to be utilized by the on-duty officer. That can come out. The county is going to provide for the department 2 or 3 cellular phones as part of the CARES money that the county got, which has to be spent by the end of December of this year. The county is going to purchase some 1,500 cellular phones for police, fire, and EMS in the county. It's not necessarily the cellular phone that's the important piece of that equipment. It's a two-way radio. As you know, the county is in the process of going to rebuild the radio system. We're going to have a brand new radio system, but it's 3 to 5 years away from being completed. We're in the initial stages at this point, and we have been having significant problems with the radios. It's not every day, okay? It happens, then it goes away, and they're fine for a couple of days, and then we get another one. It's called ducting. It's an atmospheric condition in which high-powered radio signals interfere with our ability to transmit on a portable radio to the tower. So this new cellular phone has an app on it called Zello, and that app will enable us via cellular connection to reach the tower. So if an officer gets in trouble and his portable radio doesn't work, all he'll need to do is pick up the phone, and there'll be a push-to-talk switch, the same way we have on the radio, push-to-talk, and they'll be in contact with the county. So it's kind of a fail-safe for the time being until the new radio system is up and running. So the cell phone won't be necessary because we'll have it from the county.
Like the old two-ways.
Yeah, very, very simple.
Yeah.
So they were the things that were on the wish list. And again, from a budgetary standpoint, as long as the budget is similar to what we had in it last year, we should be fine. I mean, we had capital in there. I suggest we reduce the capital a little bit, and we still have enough. I would like to see us increase the training budget by $500. I would like to see us increase the uniform budget by $500. Most of the others are very similar. The salary for our full-time officer needs to go up to be current with his rate by contract.
Yeah, Joe has that, Chief.
Okay. Salary of part-time police officers also goes up by 1.5% by contract, so I think we should increase that by about $2,000. It's not a significant increase. Most of the others are absolutely no change, because when you look at the current budget and where we are, when Joe sends the monthly reports, we are in good stead right now for the current year. If I projected it out through the end of the year, whether I have the numbers here or not, but the budget total last year was 745, 531, and I don't think we're going to spend over 700,000. I think we're like at 650 if I project out to the end of the year. Actually, it might even be less than the 650. It's, you know, there's plenty of room left in the budget.
You've done an excellent job on keeping the overtime down.
We only use it when we need it.
I have a question. On the sheet we have here, so it's saying that last year we spent 531,000, and this year it's 445
Through September 14th.
through September 14th. But still, I mean, that's still a huge savings. But I noticed like the workman's comp dropped drastically.
That's because we no longer have an officer
But
issue. Who is doing some trip and falls?
yes,
We don't have the figures for the insurances yet, so,
No, we don't, but I'm expecting they were 3% last year, the health was like 7 to 8, so, but.
the health insurance went up 8%
it was
last
8%
year.
last year, yeah. I figured right on the same boat this year.
but wasn't that because with the officer that we had?
It was because of contractual.
Okay.
Everybody had theirs go up,
So
so.
it just wasn't because of,
Yeah, it's
No.
just, it's a company, you pay attention
And health insurance never goes down.
no.
to. If we keep it flat, we'll be lucky.
Yes.
Joe, let's incorporate the chief's.
Yeah, I have all this, I have his worksheet and then
Okay.
and added other stuff.
And we'll get notice from the insurance carriers next month?
Yeah, we'll probably get from brokerage in the next week or so with the renewal, and then, I don't know when we get it from Russ, it's not even mid-October, right, end of October.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions on the chief, for the chief on this?
No, that's great.
It is wonderful. Thank you, Chief. Mayor, did you have anything to add?
Good.
You're good. Moving on, we want a budget. As everybody knows, we've got only one dump truck. We've been saying all year that we need to replace the bed of the body of the dump. So Joel, if you would incorporate that 18,000 in.
That's what when I get my thing, that's something you could possibly even do this year, Shirley. If you can get it cheaper this year, you don't want to wait a couple of years.
Let's wait until the new year,
Okay.
only in case we have an inlet go in
Okay.
and we have a major road collapse. PennDOT is still telling us that the repair on Edgemont Avenue may not be a PennDOT repair, and they might swing it over to us because they feel there's something underground collapsing.
Yep.
So come January, we can get in touch with someone and have that done immediately if we have cash on hand. Nick, if you're good with that?
Yeah, good with that.
Okay. Anybody have any questions on the dump truck?
So, this is, I'm picturing the truck, it has wood slats on the side, and
It's all metal.
it's all metal?
Yeah, it's all
Okay.
metal.
And then the whole back needs to come off?
Yeah, that whole, the bed itself, just the bed itself, otherwise it's a truck in good shape.
Is that salt that rusted it?
Yes.
Salt and weather.
Well, you can go out there, peel sheets off of it, now that's how bad it is inside. We can get away with it probably this year, or if that,
Do you want to try to do it this year?
then we consult with Ryan or Roadmaster.
So go ahead and put it in. If we talk to Ryan and he feels it's before this end of the year,
Okay.
we might have to go ahead.
Yeah, because I mean, we have cash reserve.
Okay.
What year is that truck?
13,
And how many miles are on it?
about 22,000.
Oh, that's nothing.
Give it less, don't quote me on the.
I understand, but it's,
Yeah, it's a good working truck.
It's a good truck.
Yeah.
If we're gonna try to do it this year, we should probably try to beat the leaf season. You know what I mean, rather
I
than
don't
pull
know
it
that-
out of service before, or because leaf and snow almost invariably.
You had to take it off at one.
Overlaps.
I remember that.
Yeah. Just something to consider, and I think Intercom might even come in below 18, a couple of those companies, but I mean,
Somebody
it's nice.
local.
Yeah, it's nice to have that
Again,
number.
I'll have to solve the line, he knows best, so.
It's his truck.
does the salt sit in the truck all winter long?
No,
No,
No.
no.
Okay.
just when it goes around, it does our streets, there's nothing left, it goes back over to Brookhaven, dumps it over there.
Oh, I see.
Where's the budget? Okay, we want to move on to code officer. You've got,
I got Nick Temmy's copy.
okay.
And it's
I'm-
no change, no
Yeah,
change.
last 4 years.
So that's a no-brainer.
And we want to talk about employees' increases. I would not like to mention anybody's name because we're on tape, but I feel 3% increase across the board is standard. And if everybody's in agreement with that, then we will go ahead. Any questions on that? Joe, would you incorporate that, please?
I got it.
Can I go back to code enforcement?
Sure.
So do we budget any dollars for training the code officials?
Our code officers, everybody who trains pays for themselves. As you heard Mr. Power speak, he paid for his own certifications. We pay for plumbing, electric, and the BCO to have one course each. The reason we
Per
don't-
year or?
Per year.
Okay.
The reason we do that is because they work for another municipality in which has been very generous to pay for the remaining certification classes. So it's always been the principle of the council that if council members or the code officer or code officers, fire marshal, if they wish training and certification, that they would pay for themselves because they could take that certification and obviously go work for someplace else. And unfortunately, that happened many, many years ago. For those that just came in, if you are videotaping, please give us your name and your address as normal.
Matthew Saunders, 62 East Shelton Road, Cape Parkside.
And Mr. and Mrs. Saunders, I would advise you that This meeting has been duly advertised and obviously is being videotaped. We're less formal than a regular council meeting. We do give the public an opportunity at the very end to ask specific questions as to what we talked about concerning the budget only. All right, where were we? Joe, we're going to leave the recreation as we had last year. I believe it was 6,000
Okay.
without looking.
Thought it was 7, but I'll check.
Let's look. Let me get my budget. This isn't working. Okay, we have it at 7, I'm sorry. And under that 7, Councilman Schwagert had requested to have a piece of equipment put in there for his committee of $900.
Included in the 7?
Yes, please. Another request we had was from Scott. Scott, you had requested to have information put in there. We already explained the training. The light bulbs here in the borough for 1,500 LEDs, we've already gone through that. I believe Doug had already said that we've been changing over light bulbs. We have so many in stock. But I would like to get down to your request that you had talked about at council for spending monies on the streetlights.
Right, well, can we talk about the borough building?
You want to talk about that first? Go ahead.
Sure. So, for a very low upfront cost, we really can reduce our electric bill very quickly in this building. The light fixtures changing out the light bulbs will cut the energy bill in half, and that will snowball over a lot of years. It's a very minor investment up front, and it will save us a lot of money over time. It's really, I don't know what else to say about it. It's a whatever we invest, if we were to make the investment in January, we would be paid off by the same time, by the end of the year. We would really break even on the cost of light bulbs for purchasing and replacing and reduced electric bills. And it's $10,000-$20,000 of savings over 10 years.
I think my concern, I can only speak for me, and I'll let Doug and Nick address this next. My concern is the report that our treasurer gave us about watching every penny that we have. Council has done remarkably well this year, considering that our earned income tax, local service tax, all our revenue is down exceedingly low because of the pandemic, including our transfer tax. We have light bulbs here. We've changed some over. I personally don't think that it's necessary to spend $1,500 to replace lights in a building that is barely ever used, with the exception of the police station.
Well, then let's just change it in the police station.
Doug, you want to address this?
I mean, we've definitely been upgrading the lights, and when I got on council, it was kind of like my thing, like, hey, why do we leave the air conditioning on? Why do we do this? So I may not have a professional background, but I certainly went through, within the last couple of years, we replaced them with the high efficiency fluorescent. So there's been like one iteration that we've done. And then as we move towards, rooms, but the one environmental side of things is taking all these things out, and then we have to fill these packs with, fluorescent bulbs to the tune of like 100 of them. And then you end up with something that you have to actually control
Sure,
as
so-
far as that goes.
For about $75, you can dispose of 72 light bulbs in a recycled manner. So that would be part of the $1,500 would be the cost of disposal.
Nick?
I already spoke upon this back in January or February when we had the Zoom meeting. So that is answered, questions answered. We're back on the meetings.
Eric?
What would it cost for us to get an outside opinion?
We've already had an outside
We did?
opinion.
Okay.
What outside opinion?
We had a study done in September of 2019.
Okay.
I'm not sure if I have that study with me or not.
Okay.
Who performed this study?
It was an independent company, and I'll ask Mrs. Guy if she has anything when I look for it. Mrs. Guy, do you want to have an opinion on the light bulb situation?
Well, you said it breaks even in 1 year. I guess I don't understand what all the objection is to learning more about it.
Did you say we'd break even in $1,500 in 1 year?
Well, we would have, when it was $600, when PICO was offering its discount back in, I want to say June, when I talked about this, we would have broken even in a year. Now, the PICO rebate has been cut in half, from $6 a bulb to $3 a bulb. So the opportunity is not as great as it was, and the payback will be slower.
What would happen with all the light bulbs that we replace them with and what we have in stock? How much do we have in stock?
We have about 100.
When I went through this building, we had one box of light bulbs in stock. We do not have a large.
Do we still have them in the garage?
Yes, we do.
Thank you. We have about 100 of them in the
See, I
garage.
just can't see, it's not that I'm opposed to it, I just can't see spending something that we already have stuff in stock.
But the value of the light bulbs that exist are lower than the electricity bills that those light bulbs create.
But we've already used tax-paying money to buy the light bulbs. Now we're going to reinvest in buying more light bulbs.
But if you install those light bulbs, you
And
spend more money.
Get rid of them.
You spend more money on the bulb over the course of its life than the value of the bulb.
Okay. Scott, I'm sorry, it was a company named ESG.
Right, Energy Services Group. I have been offered and not accepted jobs at that company.
Okay.
So I'm quite familiar with it. So, well, I would love to see their report, please.
I don't have the whole report, I'm sorry. I just have a note concerning ESG. Did a free audit of all the energy-related infractions, street lights, signals, interior, exterior of the building. And I'm sorry, that was like a note to me concerning who did it and what they did. In the same time, this time last year is when I contacted Lenai Electric about the street lights. So unfortunately, I don't actually have a report. I have a company, National Society of Professional Engineers, who looked at the building interior, and we did complete a situation upstairs in the attic, which I understand Nick did. They had an outside air damper that was disconnected and needed to be corrected, so that was all taken care of. I'm sorry, that's the only thing I have on that. All right, council members, at this point for our newer members, we'll go through and see who wants to include the $1,500 into the budget. Doug, would you like to include that $1,500 or no?
I'd still like to do it organically, and I think there is money in the budget in other places to do. When 5 or 6 lights are burned out in the police department,
Change them
and
over.
we just change out that room. Then we have extras for the rooms that sit dark 90% of the time. When I went through this, I'm totally on the same page with Scott as far as energy consumption and things like that. It really did come down to the HVAC stuff. It really did come down to who are our big consumers. So I understand there will be savings, and I'm absolutely on board with doing it organically, like as we get to that point. But there are people that are going to have to be paid to pull stuff apart, and but we're on the same side. I wanted to save the money.
Okay. And Nick, I think you want to?
I want to mirror the same thing as Doug said.
Me too, Eric? And, Mrs. Guy? Okay, we'll do it as they come down.
Okay.
All right, Scott, you also had $15,000 of liquid fuel money to pay for replacing street lights with high-efficiency LED lights to reduce the cost and improve the lighting in the borough. I'd like to comment on that first. Liquid fuel monies, as everybody knows, is used for street salt, our lights to be paid for, any upgrades to the roads, the road program, anything to do with that. And as the engineer said at council last month, you were only looking at a 30 to 40% increase over years to do LEDs, and to take LEDs versus sodium vapor. And Scott, you're in the business, correct me if I'm wrong. Sodium vapor reflects like this as a pyramid. LEDs are more down. As the engineer said, we'd also have to add street lights to have the same illumination that the sodium vapor would have. I personally don't want to touch the liquid fuel budget. Liquid fuel, for those in the audience that don't remember, is a trickle-down effect from the feds to the state to the county to us. That is not money that we spend of taxpayer dollars. Liquid fuel monies are not tax dollars. I don't feel that we should touch the liquid fuel budget, because if we do, and we need money for the road program for 2021, if we need money for salt, because we don't know what kind of winter it's going to be, if we need money for any other road issues, inlets or grates, then we'd have to take it out of general fund, which is tax dollars, versus liquid fuel that is non-tax dollars. So that's my feeling on it.
Well, so obviously there's money to be saved in the replacement of high-pressure sodium lights with LED. And that is an important thing to consider. The other thing to consider is that the quality of light that you get from the LED light bulb is significantly better than a high-pressure sodium or a mercury vapor. So what happens with the mercury vapor and the high-pressure sodium is gradually over time, the lights get dimmer and dimmer and dimmer. And no one really notices them getting dimmer because you're just living with them and you're just absorbing them. I have a friend who lives in Wallingford, and he's a dog owner. He walks his dog all the time. A couple times a month, I go over there, I spend some time with him, and we go for walks with the dog. And he cannot stop talking every time we get together about how much happier and how much he enjoys taking the walks with his dog now that the section of Wallingford that he lives in has been replaced with LED lighting. The community will really appreciate the better light. The light is whiter, it's brighter.
It'll keep you up at night?
Well, that depends on how the lights are installed and the specifics of the lamp that we purchase. Okay. The other thing to consider is that I think that we could forego a road program for a year or do smaller road programs. But if, for example, we were to replace all the light bulbs at one time and forego the road program for 1 year, then, okay, yeah, our roads aren't paved for a year, but if we are able to make the investment, our lighting budget will go down. I believe Ms. Catania said that we'll save about 50%, of the $17,000 a year we spend on electricity for streetlights.
She said 30 to 40%, and we don't pay for the street light cost. The liquid fuel pays for the street light cost. And your figure of 15,000, as I gave you a copy at council, from the company itself, we're looking at $51,292.38.
Right.
That does not include, as Ms. Catania said, adding additional posts and lights, because the LED does not reflect, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, they don't reflect the way the sodium vapors reflect. So this
I'm not sure
50,
even by reflect, light's done. Light's gonna come down in a cone,
Right.
and you can purchase lights that have all different kinds of cones and all different kinds of angles. So the distance between the streetlights can be calculated, and the angle of light can be determined so that halfway it reaches the next light. So that, I have to believe that there are LED light fixtures that are available that will provide the same amount of coverage for the same light fixtures. And using the Wallingford example, they did not add posts, poles, or streetlights or anything like that. I also really would like to bring the budget up from 15,000. I well underestimated how much I think we should spend on that. But again, if we reduce our lighting budget by $8,000 or $10,000, that means we have $8,000 or $10,000 every year after in higher road program budgets. So we may forego a road program for 1 year, but we will more than make up the mileage in roads in future years.
but which street should we not pave? Is it my street or is it your street?
Well, there's no streets in, I believe we
That's what
should.
I'm saying, which streets do we not pave that may need it next year so we can
Are there-
change over?
Are there any
Like-
streets that are, so our community has infrastructure. We have parks, we have roads, we have streetlights, we have all different kinds of things. Every year we invest in the roads. I'm suggesting this year we invest in the streetlights instead of the roads. If there's a street in Parkside that is in such bad shape that it can't be postponed a year, then we should take a look at that. But I don't know what roads are in such bad shape that it can't wait a year, and then we'll get 20% higher budgets every year after, because we'll spend less money on electricity
But
bills.
we're not spending any money on electricity.
Well-
The taxpayer is not spending money on electricity.
But we as a borough are when we get our money from,
But we take that money and put it into roads, we put it into salt, we put it into inlets, we put it into paying for the
paying for the
streetlights.
electricity and streetlights. And I'm saying if we reduce our
I hear
streetlight
you.
budget, if we reduce our streetlight budget in half, then we have that much more money to spend on other items. And a one-time investment of, we spend about $50,000 a year on our road program. If we were instead to skip a road program for 1 year and then do a street lighting upgrade, then every year after, we have $8,000 or $10,000 additional dollars to spend on the road program.
We're actually replacing the lights now.
As
Going
they-
out now.
As,
Okay.
as they go.
Yeah.
Yes, that's correct. We
Just
were,
have North Fork and Rollins are next one, so we're
Yes.
changing them down, we did.
So-
Doug, let me have your thoughts on this, please.
Again, I think it's a fantastic idea. I just haven't seen any of the other townships in like Delaware County that have gone with taking, the old ones that work out and replacing them. And I've been keeping my eye open to see if like Ridley Township's done it or one of those. I'm all for being an early adopter as far as that goes. I'm not saying it's untried or untrue technology,
Right.
but, I kind of jumped on the LED bandwagon with my house, and I'm getting a bunch of bulbs that need to be replaced just like that. So I'd like to see where,
Do you find your house brighter and whiter and?
sometimes that's a positive, sometimes that's a negative.
Thank you,
If you-
especially in the morning.
I mean, and as we can talk about quality of light, I'd rather stay with the financial aspects of it. I mean, we have people in the borough that are, complaining about the brightness of the lights in the wood lot, so,
Yes.
you know, there's two hands to that story. I just haven't seen other communities that have taken out good working bulbs right yet. Even no matter what the savings, no matter what, and I'm not saying I don't want to be an early adopter or move in that direction, but it would be really nice to say, oh, Ridley Township got a PICO grant to replace the, you know, there probably is grants available, there will probably be things like that that move us in that direction, perhaps faster than budgeting it, and so.
I do know Upper Darby made an investment this year, so there's.
Nick, would you like to?
Replace them as they go out.
I agree. Harry?
I have to say that we should wait and replace them as we're going out. I don't like the idea, how do we tell a resident that your street's not getting fixed because we're replacing lights? Or we had 2 years ago, or 3 years, when either West Forest or West Garrison met, the road caved in. And we were looking at a $20,000 bill. We didn't know if it was going to be the borough or was it the water company?
Yes.
And that was going to put us in financial straits. Fortunately, it went out with the water company. But you need to keep money into an account for emergencies, or like the inlet, we had the problem down in the park with something was leaking or backing up. And once again, I don't think you're asking the taxpayers to pay for something that right now they're not paying for. And we don't know where the budget is now. I mean, taxes may go up, taxes are going up all over. So now we're asking residents, well, we're going to pay for this, but we can't fix your street. There is the one part that we're having the streets fixed in November, right? We paid,
Yeah, it's going to like 2 weeks from now.
but we left out a couple because we didn't have enough money to
That's
do those.
correct.
And we picked the worst ones, which was by the firehouse, but we still have the others over there that desperately need them because with the fire trucks going in and out, they're causing the pavements to cave in.
But we just
So-
did that a year ago. We
No,
just
no.
did that last year.
No, this year's paving, if you recall, we had a list of 4 or 5 streets that needed done. We chose the ones near the fire company because the weight of the fire trucks was collapsing those streets.
No, that was last year.
That's for
This year.
this year.
Okay.
Our street, we start in the spring, taking a look at our streets,
Right.
and by the time they get to it, it's now fall, and that's when they're starting this next 2 weeks. And
I
we
just
still
think-
have 4 or 5 streets that didn't make the cut. for
Which
next year.
streets were those?
The ones that are getting done now?
The ones that aren't getting done that need to get done?
You know, I don't know if I have the list or not, because that program's almost over with.
You know,
I
I would,
just
I
don't-
would,
I
I
just
would
don't
argue
see-
that the streets are in relatively good shape and that we should invest in the infrastructure of our lights instead of our streets this year.
Mrs. Guy, your thoughts?
I guess I was wondering what streets, my thoughts was that, you know, maybe we do partway. If you guys aren't willing to do 100%, we'd pull half of it and do half the streetlights and see how you'll like it, and use the other half for the street that needs done. But I guess I'm not getting around all the Parkside expenditures where the streets are.
I've got a list, and Nick is more familiar, being its properties. West Shelton, Edgemont to Norfolk, we had Beechwood, we had Gray. Am I missing any, Nick? And this is an old list. Crozier Street, the intersection of Norfolk, and I don't know if we have any
Yeah,
others.
Lisa did it,
She did a list.
yeah.
You
But I
see-
just think it's not fair
I
to
live
the
on Beechwood,
residents
that
to
street
have
doesn't
streets
get
that are
water.
caving in.
Oh, wait a minute. Norfolk, West Avon to Beechwood, West Shelton, Edgemont to Arlington, East Shelton, Crozier Street, Tom Sweeney. Those are the ones, we also mentioned West Shelton, Edgemont to Norfolk, Crozier, Gray to Beechwood. So that was the original list that we had to knock off those streets.
Right, that's what we're doing this year, I believe.
Yeah.
We're doing the street over next to the fire company,
We're doing the streets from Edgemont.
not Tom Sweeney.
West Shelton from Edgemont to Norfolk, and then we're doing Crozier from Gray to Beechwood.
Okay, but we're missing out Crozier and Tom Sweeney, correct? And East Shelton?
That's the list that
That
she
was-
gave us.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
These are
and-
streets that need done
Yes,
next year.
yes.
Right.
Next year.
I don't believe they're in such bad shape. I think all right, I've made my point. The quality of light will improve, and people will enjoy living in the community better with higher quality lights, and the streets can wait a year.
Like Doug said, we already have one neighbor that's complaining about the one light in the park with the
It was
plugs.
too bright.
Yeah, she said it's like being on 95.
All right, I think we'll leave the street lights out, and we'll look at our revenue next year and replace them with LEDs as we have been, as we've been going. So, the next thing I'd like to address is the fire company expenses. We normally give a kind donation to the fire company. This year, we'll increase it to $130,000. I would ask that Joe put that into the budget.
I just said the line item, right?
That'll go under,
That's replacing the $10,000.
yes, that's correct. That'll go under that.
It's 411,370 contribution to firehouse. In there now, we've been giving 10,000.
Yeah.
Did we get a report from the firehouse?
I spoke with the executive board, and they are doing quite well, exceeding my expectations on their issues with handling revenue. I believe one piece of equipment has already been sold, and they're moving forward on that.
So are we going to get a full report as a council, or what's the status of that?
I don't have a copy of their finances, I'm not privy. I will say that as a private entity, that their finances are, at this point, cannot be shared because they're a private entity. I can tell you what I've learned, that if you would like me to read some of my notes, Mayor, would you like, is that all right with you?
I'm sorry?
If I read some of my notes
From the firehouse?
for the firehouse?
Yes.
They've sold a piece of equipment for $20,000. They're selling an ambulance. They're reopening the hall to groups after the COVID-19 guidelines are finished. They've eliminated several monthly costs, including but not limited to the exterminator. They've restructured all of their utilities, cable, phone, etc. And they're looking into reopening the social room, which will be down the road because there's some legalities concerning that. Also, as we all know, the EMS are no longer at the fire company as of Sunday, which will save on payroll wages, taxes, workers' comp, insurances, and I feel that they've done their due diligence and have done an excellent job in curtailing expenses and also offsetting that with bringing in revenue.
So we're going to give the money to them, and is there any kind of reporting that they have to do to us, or do we just give the money and then we just hope the money doesn't run out?
Yeah, they report to us.
They will report to us monthly. The fire chief, and as everybody may know, that the fire chief is new, and the mayor and I agree that the fire chief should come to council as they did years ago and give a report to council.
So, instead of giving them $10,000 like we did this year, we're giving them $130,000?
That's correct, but it'll be quarterly.
So where are we going to get that money to give to them?
It'll come out of the general fund budget?
Do we have an extra $120,000 a year to give them? Do we have revenue to offset that?
Well, that equates to approximately 2 mil increase, which, if you want to break it down further, is approximately $150 a year per household.
Okay, so taxes are going to go up for this?
2 mils as far as I know, but I have not seen the treasurer's, I have not seen the treasurer's
That's why I want to go, that's why I want to go over.
detailed information as to what as everybody knows, our houses have been reassessed for 100% of the value.
Yeah.
We don't know what the county has,
Yeah, they still couldn't give me an answer.
they
yet.
still could not.
So, yeah, the total reassessment, so I'm trying to get Parkside total reassessment, because we have to calculate the mill before we took the total, the county would send you a letter in November with the total assessment for the Parkside Borough, and I would calculate the mill from that. And the last, like Ms. Percival said, the last 2 or 3 years, our mill's been about $63,000. And we have 11.5 mills on our taxes. So, but this year with the reassessment, properties have gone up and gone down, so you're not supposed to raise taxes with the new assessment. So you have to calculate the mill different, and I haven't found out yet how to calculate the mill. So I'm still waiting to get some
I
information.
talked to the treasurer a couple weeks ago, and I asked him the same question. What does a mill now equate to with the 100% assessment? We don't know. Joe's been on it. We don't know. The county is not giving anybody a deliberate answer.
And we don't know what our assessment is.
And we
And
don't.
they can't give it to us in November because it's going to be way different than last year, I would assume.
Mm-hmm.
Because some towns have gone way up and some towns have gone way down.
Right.
And so I don't know how you make it up. I don't know what Parkside's is yet.
We just don't, it's an unknown. We don't-
Philadelphia suspended their reassessment until 2022 because of the COVID pandemic.
And as I recall, I think it was Rob Powers who told us that if we don't do this, raise the mill up to get the 132, the firehouse will shut down, and our own house insurance will go up. Would that be a correct statement there, Mr. Powers?
Do we know?
I
Well,
talked to my
not-
insurance company, my insurance without a fire company in town will go up to almost $2,600 a year. Right now, I'm paying about $1,250, $1,300 the most.
Ours is up 3,000.
Not just that, as I don't know what anybody else feels, but we would have to pay another fire company to come in, so why would we do that when we have our own fire company to support?
Yeah, nobody's objecting to supporting our fire company. I just wanted to understand where the money was coming from. And so if we're going to be subsidizing the fire company, are they going to continue to keep their finances closed?
My understanding is the fire chief will be here at regular meetings like they used to.
Madam President, if I may.
Sure.
I believe under the Commonwealth law, once a municipality enters into a financial agreement with the local fire department, then the local fire department is required to present to that municipality a financial findings in a time period convenient to the municipality. Now, the law is silent as to what exactly finances the fire company has to give because it's a separate entity chartered under the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. So my assumption would be that the fire company would, at the request of council, provide the council with the necessary information on expenditures and income, basically what it's going to cost the fire department to keep the doors open and the lights on. I think that Councilman Copabianca and Mr. Powers bring up an excellent point. If the fire company were to cease operations, regardless of whether there's a fire company 2 blocks down the road in another town, the insurance company, which is called the ISO, the Insurance Services Organization, which is the group that rates fire protection rates for communities, would still have to rate Parkside as being unprotected because there is no local fire company, which means the insurance rates for individual homeowners would probably increase. On top of that, if the fire company were to cease operations under the Commonwealth law, the council would have to provide fire protection one way or another, which, and I don't have any specific figures on what that would cost, but I would say it would probably cost equal to or over the $130,000.
and this will be paid out quarterly. This will be out quarterly to the fire company.
Here's another question to that. So if the fire company discloses their finances to council, it's not just a single personal council, it's a council as a whole. So if I just couldn't go over to there and say, let me go see your finance because I'm on council.
That's correct.
So it would have to be a council as a whole.
That's correct.
Okay.
And also, I believe we put it as a line item so that if by chance, God forbid, the fire company should shut down, then the money would go into our general fund.
That's
That
correct.
We would not lose what we've given.
That's correct.
So it's more of, so we would use that money than to pay, per se, like Brookhaven. So we're covered either way.
At least, contribution, right? Contribution.
Right, exactly. That's what I'm
That's
saying.
what
We
we're
put this in as a line item. We didn't put it as a donation.
No,
or
it's
whatever.
not a donation.
You're bumping it $120,000, what you'd like to do. Line item's been in there since you've been giving them 10,000. It's right under 411, which is the fire account. And you're just bumping it up 120,000.
That's
So it's
correct.
a win-win for both.
Yes.
Yeah, I agree.
Does anybody else have any questions on that fire company issue?
And we won't have an empty building in.
We won't have to purchase one, huh?
Well, drive through Lenai and look at their abandoned firehouse, drive through all the places when they do all these consolidations, it doesn't look nice. I mean,
It's not.
yeah, and it might be a moral thing, but, you know, empty churches, firehouses and things like that just don't build
And homes.
community. It just doesn't build community.
If we don't support our own, who will? And I'm sure everybody supports the fire company and the police department, so we'll move on. Anybody else have any questions on that issue? Does anybody have any questions on the budget for does any council member have any questions so far where we're going on the budget? Okay, if everybody's good, then at this time, if anybody in the audience has a specific question concerning the budget items we discussed tonight, I will entertain that. If you could stand up and give me your name and your address, and we'll try to answer it for you. This was too easy. Rob?
Rob Powers, can you please add $2,500 to emergency management for fire marshal slash? I put in for it every year, haven't used it in 5 years.
I think, it-
Yep.
Joe, did you already put that in? I know Rob didn't give us a budget, but that's usually standard.
Yeah, I have a salary, and I have it in different spots.
I think last year I put in 2,000.
Yeah,
I've never used it, but in case I need it, evidence cans, things like that.
Okay.
2,500?
And I'm gonna need probably a helmet this year. The other one is not in compliance anymore. So if something happened to me, a beam fell on my head while I was investigating or something, you open yourself up to a lawsuit if I get injured, so just wanna make sure I stay compliant.
Are you okay until the end of the year, into the new year?
I'm sorry?
Are you okay until the new year with the helmet?
Yeah.
Does anybody else have a question concerning budget figures only? If council has nothing else, we'll entertain a motion to adjourn. And let me say one more thing, is our next budget meeting is October 12th, which is again a Monday at 6:30. Scott, what else did you have?
Will we get a draft of the budget at that
Yes,
time?
Yeah, I'll give you a
yes.
preliminary. Yeah, if I could just get 2 seconds, Ms. President.
Go ahead, Joe.
What I didn't put, what I just gave you was a comparison from this year to last year, and just credit the council. Just a couple of highlight things. Last year, our building permits, most towns are way down. We're almost exactly the same now. Last year it says 101,000, but that's 60-some thousand dollars we got from Pendelco.
Yes.
On the one permit, which is like a one-time thing. So we're probably a little bit ahead this year on permits. And if you look at the, and so same with inspections, we're right in line. Our health insurance is down a little bit. I also have in here the police vehicle, we were gonna finance it. I still can at the end of the year, there's a loan in place, but we're doing so well, knock on wood, doing well in considering the conditions, that we can pay it in full this year. If not, if we see things tightening up in the next 2 months, I'll kick the loan in and they'll pay us the money and then I'll just make the first payment. But if you look at the bottom line on page 3, the net income this year right now is about $470,000. Now that doesn't reflect the $100,000 we got to pay back on the TAN. So
Right.
in theory, it's 370. So, and then if you look at last year, it was 305 at the same time period. But if you back out that $61,000, we're ahead by almost $100,000. And I do this in other towns, and I wish it was this good in other towns. And the earned income tax is off by $231, but where we're gonna feel the lag in the earned income tax is the next couple
Next
months.
quarter.
Yeah, the third quarter, I'm president of the tax collection committee, and the guys from Keystone said you'll feel it next quarter. So I'll have a better feel for next budget meeting, where we're going, what we can budget for that next year, for that and the LST. Just and then a couple things to highlight, our MMO will be down roughly $13,000 from this year, which is good, real good. That's our minimum municipal obligation that we have to pay towards the state. The state, our actuary gives us calculates a number, we have to pay it towards the police pension, or the borough's portion, and it's required by law. And it's down, our payment's down by about $13,000, which is great.
That's what we passed last month, Scott.
Yeah.
Right, okay.
And then you have small increases in pay. Now, our trash and recycling is going up roughly $15,000, which isn't too bad. We raised our fee to $228 last year.
Right.
But with the system, but you're getting 2 pickups every week of the year. Pretty damn good price, $228.
And they've been picking up 150% of the usual trash because nobody's throwing away trash at school or work anymore. They're all throwing it away at home.
At home, okay. Yeah,
Now,
makes sense.
Joe, are we gonna have to increase the tax?
Well,
or the
depending on what
trash
you do,
fee?
$10 would cover it. If you have to increase it, $5 to $10, I would suggest. I just think the trash should be increased every year because it's not a tax, it's a service. And you're one of the few towns that provides trash pickup twice a week, all year round. I mean, Aston, where I live, I pay well over $300, and we only get twice pickup in the summer. We don't get anything in the fall.
Are you
winter.
gonna recommend $10 increase?
I recommend that now, but like I said, the numbers, it's real early, and it's real difficult to budget this year because with the
I know.
pandemic, we don't know what's gonna happen in the next 2 or 3 months.
Okay.
And that's the only reason I'm a little hesitant to put any numbers down. And until I get the calculation on the mill, because we're gonna feel, our transfer tax, we're gonna feel, because people there's not properties moving too much, because people can't afford to move, some people can't afford it, so that tax is down. Our earned income tax, we're gonna feel it in the next quarter, it'll come down, because they'll
And the
get caught. Court fees are down.
Fees are down.
We're lucky, Nick's doing a good job with the code. I mean, our permit fees are staying right in line with the
Right.
prior year, which is good. We got to still look for grants. The CARES Act, the chief said, there's going to be hopefully some more stimulus money, depending on who wins the election, I guess, in November. But if that money comes down, we might be able to pull some of that money to offset some of our COVID expenses that we experienced.
Well, we applied for 3,000 plus.
I saw that, you know.
We have not received it to
Okay.
cover police overtime.
Yeah, okay. Well, that's,
So we haven't gotten it.
okay.
Nobody's gotten it, it's not just us.
But your police budget's
not-
down because you don't have the 2 full-timers anymore. You just
That's
have the 1
correct.
full-timer. And the chief just gets a small increase too. So you mean,
Correct.
you guys have a pretty good police budget and it's run real well.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just, I'll have the numbers for you that you don't get, it's not guaranteed you have to raise the 2 mils to cover that fire expense either, because it'll see how much money, cash we have on the side. You might want to use some reserve, stuff like that.
Well, council did talk about taking $10,000 and put it in savings. If there is a reserve, I don't know, I think we mentioned this last year, we want to start a savings account for emergency.
Right.
So if there is a reserve, I'd like to see something going into a Pliget account.
And could you also possibly even you give them 25,000, or 25, what is it, 130, 120, 40,000, 30,000 a quarter, you could possibly even pay that 4th quarter in January and only budget 75, and then next year you can push it a few days. I mean, that depends on what you want to do.
Well, they've just sold a piece of equipment, and they've also got another one listed for sale. So
Okay.
I understand they'll be fine for the first 6 months.
Okay,
For this
okay.
3 months and the next 3 months.
Okay.
But I truly think that we've all thought that a savings account is relevant.
Yeah, and I do have money in an account, so. I mean,
Okay.
But and in the last couple of years, we've been able to continue all your services and reduce spending, which is pretty darn good. I mean, we haven't cut any services. We've added to, and the only thing that's really gone up is the trash fee, and that was because you got the recycling cost went up. But that's, and then the truck bed, you decide if you can do it this year or next year, for
Well-
the 18th.
Do you want to get back to Joe and bring it up at council next week?
Yep, next week, next Wednesday.
We'll get back to you on that after.
And then the only other
Right.
problem is I'm looking at going forward is cash flow, like, if there's no vaccine and they can't get a handle on this pandemic, how the winter goes, people might forego paying the discount period with their real estate taxes next year and push it into maybe the penalty phase because they just are worried they might not have $2,000-3,000 to
Exactly.
pay their food bills and stuff. So then we might feel a cash flow crunch in the beginning of the year if people don't pay their taxes. This year, we didn't feel it because the majority of people in Parkside pay early, and that was prior to the pandemic really taking off. So that's something we need to look at next year. We may want to even think about
Hold something
yeah,
back.
exactly, or get a little bit more on our TAN, maybe 150, which would be peanuts and interest, because the interest is, we're getting money for free pretty much. And the loan in the building, it's the only loan we have on our balance sheet, that's coming down quite a bit. We only owe a couple $100,000 on that, and that's the only outstanding debt we have. So if anything did happen, we had to go look for a loan. We're knocking on wood, pretty good financial situation to get money in an emergency.
Okay, great.
So it's a credit to everybody on the county.
Thank you, Joe.
I appreciate it, Joe. It's good to see you.
Thanks.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
I mean, it might be an added expense, but it's for the chief. What would it be to bring back the summer patrol?
The bike
Would they ship the
patrol?
Mike?
Would that, I mean, is that possible? I mean,
Sure, anything.
just like on the weekends?
I agree.
I think that was an added feature.
One of
that
the
we-
things that, and I had talked to the mayor about it early in the summer, because of everything that we were dealing with COVID, with some of the early demonstrations and not knowing what was going on and how, we brought in a lot of folks for a number of those events. So I decided, not to use the bike patrol this year. Can we bring that back? Sure.
Great.
Sure. And I don't see any reason why, under normal circumstances, we wouldn't do that. The money, we don't have to change the budget for that, the money's there.
Yeah, I wasn't sure that that was an added
Yeah,
expense.
no, we would have sufficient funds to do that.
I think that would be something for the residents.
I love the
Like on
bike
Friday,
patrol.
Saturday, and Sunday.
I'm making a note. I'll remind you in the spring. God willing, I'm still operating.
Just with all the stuff that's going on in local
I
areas.
agree. I love the bike. I love to see it, and the kids love it.
Yeah.
Does anybody else on council have anything they'd like to input?
Can I make a motion to adjourn?
You can. Thank you, everyone.